Welcome, everybody, to the Soul of the Unexplained. I bet you kind of forgot who we are because, gosh, it's been a little over a month since the last time we did a podcast, but that's because craziness that always happens at the end of the year with all the holidays that come up, and we had some folks in our crew here that got hit with some flu action as well, so unfortunately we had to take a little bit of time off to let folks recover from that, and Jonny was our world traveler sailing on the daring Skinwalker Uncharted cruise, which I'm sure was a lot of fun, and all kinds of great stuff. But folks, thanks again for joining us today. I'm super excited to welcome one of our special guests, a gentleman that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a couple of years now, that I got to meet at Phenomicon several years back. That gentleman is now the director of the Utah chapter of the Mutual UFO Network, better known as MUFON. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Dustin Eskelsen. Dustin, so good to see you. How
Good
are
to
you
see
doing, buddy?
you, man. Good. I'm doing good. How about you, Jim?
I'm doing okay. I'm kind of, don't know if people can tell, I'm kind of growing out the hair, trying to get the mullet action going because,
There you go.
you know, any decent hitchhiker should have a mullet at least once in his life, right? Right, John?
I've never had a mullet. Well, I did in the 1990, but
So you're saying you
I don't
had
think
hair?
I don't have much of a chance of growing a mullet right now. I think my scalp went the wrong direction for a mullet. Well, actually, not really, because it still grows in the back. So maybe I could pull off kind of a, I don't know. I don't know if that would be a mullet or not.
Right on. Johnny, did you ever sport a mullet back in the day?
I plead the fifth.
Yes, I've seen pictures. This dude used to have
Hey,
long hair.
Look, it wasn't-
Busted.
It was neither a mullet nor unfashionable for the time.
No, it was
Because
just long.
in the 2010s or so, football players, it was just the style to have long hair. And, it gave people a lot to grab. If you managed to have the ball, it only happened one time. And guess what? They
Yep.
got a handful of hair. But it was never a mullet. I have to say, never a mullet.
I went through a Sons of Anarchy phase back when that show was still on TV, and it was like, I want to say about 2012, 2013. I had hair clear down to the middle of my back, and there's a photo of me out there that's I've got somewhere on my Facebook page that is hidden. And when people see it, they're like, "There's no way that's you." I'm like, "Oh, that's me."
I could see you being an outlaw biker.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yep.
There you go. Secret outlaw biker. I like that. Right on. Well, Dustin, just a couple of weeks ago, you and I had the wonderful opportunity to attend a seminar that was given by none other than Mr. Ben Woodruff, the one of the biologists that works out and contracts work with Skinwalker Ranch. And we sat near each other there during that presentation, and I was blown away by Ben's presentation. I know that John and Johnny feel the same way that I do. Absolutely loved his presentation at Phenomicon this last year. He was kind of a last-minute addition to Phenomicon 2025, and the presentation he gave was just, I mean, seriously, no way anybody was sleeping through that presentation because he's so engaging. He's got such a just a raw energy for what he does, so passionate in what he does, and it was so exciting to listen to him. And some of the background stories that he shared about some of the things that he is personally experienced on the ranch, that he's got the data to report on. I mean, this is stuff that should not exist, should not be possible scientifically, but yet he's got the data and he's got the everything to back up everything. So let's just kind of quickly start there. What is just walking away from that presentation where Ben was talking about some of the bizarre rates of decomposition of animals that have been found on the ranch, to the trippy things that happened to his falcon that was flying on the ranch. I mean, just stuff right straight out of a sci-fi movie, but yet, as we've come to see and learn about Skinwalker Ranch, that's just the ranch kind of being the ranch, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what's cool about that ranch is you have so many different things going on there. I think if you're going to study it, it's going to take a village. And I think hearing from Ben, who has that background in biology and botany and studying animals. It's cool to hear his insight on it, because a lot of the stories that he told, he had to clear and get clearance to tell them, because they may use it, they may not. It's sort of how television works. And it's so cool that he was able to sort of start telling these stories, because part of you goes, I don't know how these were not in the show, because they're so fascinating, with him talking about the Falcon, how they just lost sight of it. They had a GPS locator on it. It appeared on the GPS that this Falcon went into the mesa and came out of it. And then the one thing that I thought was interesting is, because I do think animals have an incredible sense of things that we don't. And he was talking about how that Falcon for a long time refused to land. It almost felt like I almost like sense of danger, and I can't land here. So it sort of stayed in this zone and kept going up and down, up and down. The decomposition is endlessly fascinating, because you have these animals that die on the ranch. You may not know how they died, but they're not decomposing the way they should be. It's almost like they are preserved somehow.
Frozen in time, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like all the things that eat away at their flesh, all the decomposition is on pause. And so it's interesting that they're starting to look into that angle as well. And I know there's a million angles you can look into on the ranch. But yeah, his presentation is awesome. And like you said, at Phenomicon, he got pretty much a standing ovation. I remember it was one of the best there, if not the best presentations. He has this energy. He keeps things moving too. And he doesn't have an end of things to talk about. And one thing that I don't remember him talking about at Phenomicon, and maybe it happened in between Phenomicon into now, is that video that lady caught of that Black Panther looking creature. That was in, was it Roosevelt, or was it the Vernal area?
It was in Roosevelt, yeah.
It was in Roosevelt.
Yep.
Yeah, some mother and daughter filmed a panther-looking creature crawling up this hillside, and they were able to get a video of it. And he's just going through all the aspects of, could it have been an actual panther, and just so many other crazy things that he's experienced and looked into on the ranch. So yeah, it was amazing. He posted on YouTube. If any of you haven't seen that out there, please go check it out. If you're a Skinwalker Ranch fan, you got to check out his presentation on there.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary. John or Johnny, have you guys had a chance to view that yet?
I've got it marked to watch, but I haven't watched it yet. But I can't wait to watch it, because he is absolutely one of the most engaging speakers that I've heard in a while on these sorts of topics. Like his talk at Phenomicon, like you guys just said, it was amazing, and he threw that together right at the last minute, practically.
Yeah.
Just filling in for Eric, if I remember right. Man, he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
I haven't had a chance to watch that either. In fact, I hadn't heard about that yet. Which, I mean, with the amount I'm in the circles out and about, I'm surprised I didn't hear about it. I'm not that surprised I didn't hear about it. Just, it hasn't come across my feed with all the other stuff I've been doing lately.
Yeah, it's great, because the same level of energy and the same sense of humor that Ben had during his presentation at Phenomicon, he exhibited the same thing there. The presentation that he did at the Hutchings Institute Museum, which was just a lot of fun. Of course, it was great to see Dustin there, and there were actually a couple of locally based Skinwalker Ranch insiders that showed up to that presentation as well. That was kind of nice to see, and there were people that came from fairly far away in Utah to see that presentation as well, Dustin. So
it was worth the drive.
And oh, John, I've got to backtrack a little bit. How about those Seahawks during the Super Bowl, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to say I was happy to watch the Seahawks win, but when it's against the
on character for me, I didn't even know.
What's that, Johnny?
On character for me, I didn't even know. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I didn't even know they were playing in the Super Bowl.
Well, I only watched like the first quarter.
You really didn't miss much. It was actually kind of a fairly boring game.
That's why I stopped watching.
It was. I knew heading into it that the Seahawks were likely going to blow out the Patriots, and that's exactly what they did. And I'm kind of bummed out because the one of the big things I always look forward to is, the blockbuster movie trailers that they always show during the Super Bowl. And they said for weeks leading up to it that they were going to do a brand new trailer for Avengers Doomsday. And of course, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a huge comic book geek. I love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so, of course, that did not happen. So I was disappointed on that. But we did get a little bit of a teaser of the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu movie because I'm a huge Star Wars fan as well. So it was kind of nice to see that. But yeah, football season's done for a while. It'll be
I
nice
want
to
to say
focus
one
on
thing.
something else.
One thing about the Super Bowl, and I would not bleed orange and blue if I did not say this, but if Bo Nix did not break his foot, we win that game.
Quite possibly. Yes,
I am convinced.
quite possibly.
And if it was Tom Brady on the team 10 years ago, you would have won the game too, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Wait,
Just
well,
want to
this
make that clear.
defense, maybe not.
That defense was crazy good. Yeah.
Yes,
Look,
indeed.
If the Denver Broncos manage to win a Super Bowl, South Park is going to get incredibly popular again.
They love it.
1998 Denver Broncos, right? That's the last time.
No,
No,
we beat
Broncos
beat
won in
Panthers.
2015, I think was
2015.
yeah, they
Wow.
beat Cam Newton's Panthers at the time.
Yep,
That's right.
Yep.
with a barely functioning
Now-
Peyton Manning.
We will not discuss how long it's been since my Raiders have been in the Super Bowl or my Buffalo Bills. So, yeah, we just won't talk about that.
Was
I
it
think
like
it
Bo
was in my
Jackson or
lifetime,
something?
right?
No, last time the Raiders were in the Super Bowl was 2003. They were playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that was a blowout because who was the coach of the Raiders? Well, it was the guy that was the assistant coach under John Gruden. And who was the head coach of the Buccaneers? John Gruden. And guess what? The guy that replaced John Gruden, his assistant, didn't change up the playbook, so the Buccaneers literally knew every play that the Raiders were running, and just it was ugly. It was ugly.
I mean, you
But-
can't run the same playbook year by year. You just can't. In modern football, you just can't do that.
Nope.
You got an
And the-
idiot like me that can watch your film and write out your entire playbook in a matter of days.
That's pretty much the Raiders, yeah. For better or worse. But we digress, folks. We're not here to talk about sports. So, Dustin, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do with the MUFON chapter here in Utah, and just how to maybe start with a little bit of background of how you got involved in it and what the organization does, and let us know if there's anything kind of exciting looming on the horizon for the Utah chapter of MUFON.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I got involved with the phenomenon probably about 2017-ish. Stumbled into a very weird way. I always believed that there was other life out there. I always thought that the possibility of other life has to be vastly greater than no possibility to life. But I actually found it. I was researching some lyrics of a song that I really liked. Jason Molina has a song called "Farewell Transmission," and it's one of my favorite songs. And I was at work one day and I was just listening to it on the headphones, and one of the lyrics is "Will o' the Wisp," and I didn't know what that meant. So I was like, let me just Google that. So I Googled it, and of course I found out that it's sort of terminology for a lot of times unexplained lights, even back in medieval times where they thought, they equated it to fairies flying through the forest, all the way up to nowadays with the government's whole swamp gas thing, saying that people are just seeing swamp gas. So I really, and this is how far I've come, I really thought that, maybe there's some areas down south where there's swamp where you can go and see swamp gas, almost like Old Faithful. They'll take you on a boat and see this stuff, right? So I'm like, that'd be kind of cool to take the wife out there and check that out. So I Google where's the best place to see Will o' the Wisp. A website came up, top 10 places to see Will o' the Wisp. And number 10 was somewhere, I don't remember exactly, but it was somewhere in the South. It was somewhere that has swamp. It was like, let's say Florida. I go, okay, makes sense. But then it started getting into aliens and UFOs, and this person saw a flying saucer. And I was like, I don't want to see this. So I went from number 10 to number 9. It was in like Louisiana, let's say. Once again, it starts talking about flying saucers and aliens. I go, I want to go to a place to see swamp gas. What is this? So it's that thing in your head where you go, I have to see what number one is on a top 10 list. So I just scroll all the way to number one. And according to this website, it said the number one place to see will-o'-the-wisp is Skinwalker Ranch, Utah. And I was like, what? And I start reading, and it said it's near Vernal, and I'd been to Vernal before. And I'm like, I couldn't believe what was going on. They were telling stories from the George Knapp, Colin Kelleher book. And it just sucked me in a way that nothing else could. And I think it's because it was in my backyard. It was in Utah. And that's really what led me down that rabbit hole. MUFON came later, I think in 2021, 2022-ish. I became a member because I found out that they had the database that you can access if you're a member. And just being like a data nerd, I was like, I got to check this out.
Yeah.
So I started digging through the database, and then found out that you could become a field investigator. So I ordered the manual, took the course, and became a field investigator under Brian Lindley, who was the state director at the time. Really awesome dude. Taught me everything I know. And we worked together as a two-man team really for all of Utah for a couple years. And then he stepped down, and then I became the state director after that. And it's been very rewarding. It's a lot of work, especially with how little field investigators we have and how many cases Utah receives.
Mm-hmm.
But it's awesome. I think talking with experiencers and people who've seen strange things. Since then, I've also joined the experiencer resource team inside of MUFON. So it's if a case comes in that involves someone having contact with non-human intelligence or being taken aboard a craft, it goes to the ERT team. So it's a whole sort of separate kind of investigation that's more so to be there for them and have resources for them should they want to seek support groups, therapy, hypno-regression therapy if they want to remember what happened to them during these encounters, because a lot of times they have fuzzy memories or no memories at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, growing up in Utah, I grew up in a very small town, and I always was one of those people who was like, I got to get out of here. I don't like Utah, and it's lame and stupid and all that stuff. And now I'm older, and I love Utah, and I took so many things for granted that I love here. Not just like the UFO phenomenon, paranormal, Bigfoot, but we really have some beautiful landscapes out here, beautiful lands.
We really do. Utah is a gorgeous state.
It's awesome. So I think I think I was just young and dumb and didn't really appreciate what we had here. And especially now with the investigations going on, Utah is just such a hot spot that I'm so grateful to be part of everything here.
Yeah, my background wasn't too dissimilar from yours. I had always believed in the likelihood of there being intelligent life elsewhere in the universe, but being the science-minded person that I've always been, it's like, what are the odds of that life ever reaching Earth? Because it clearly has got to be out in the cosmos, and the cosmos is such a vast thing. And I'd always followed all the famous UFO stories, just kind of like a side interest. I remember hearing about Roswell years ago. I remember learning about the Kecksburg UFO incident with all those great TV shows that we used to have on back in the 80s, John, Unexplained Mysteries, Robert Stack coming on and doing all these, in his perfect voice for that TV show, where he would talk about Roswell, he'd talk about Kecksburg and some of the more famous UFO incidents in history that we now call part of the legacy program, right? But my turning point happened in 2017 as well, with the publication of the New York Times article, because that was the first time where there was any kind of real reputable mainstream media source covering something like this. And the basic gist of it was the Pentagon openly admits that they actually didn't stop investigating UFOs back at the termination of Project Blue Book in 1969, that they did continue to take an interest in them. And oh, by the way, there's been several, programs that have been operating since the end of Project Blue Book where we have been still taking an active interest in investigating these UAPs. And oh, by the way, here's 3 videos. And of course, that was the Go Fast, the gimbal, and the Tic Tac video, which we're all so familiar with now. So that was my turning point where I was like, okay, now they've got my attention, and maybe I need to pay a little closer attention to this. And then with Skinwalker Ranch, I moved to Utah from New York in the autumn of 1994. So I've been in Utah now for longer than I ever lived in New York. And I fell in love with Utah the first time I came to Utah, which was back in '83. I had an older sister that was graduating from Brigham Young University, and so we drove out from New York to attend her graduation in '83. And I just fell in love with how beautiful the mountains were, and just how just how different the geography in Utah is. And of course, all the beautiful women that are here. Like them so much, I ended up marrying one. I'm still married to her, believe it or not. But but I first learned about Skinwalker Ranch in 1996 when it was either, I don't remember if it was the Deseret News or the Salt Lake Tribune ran a story on the Sherman family out at Skinwalker Ranch and what they had been going through. And that was my first time hearing about it. I'm like, wow, this seems really interesting. So then 2006, when The Hunt for the Skinwalker book was published by George Knapp and Colm Kelleher, I read that and I ate that up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then that sent me down the Skinwalker Ranch rabbit hole. And then in 2000, what was it, John? 2020, when the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch debuted on the History Channel, I think, was
I don't remember. Right around
either
there,
20 either 2019 or 2020. And when I first heard about it,
well,
just like you, John, my thought was, oh my gosh, this is going to be so stupid. They're gonna just make fun of it. And I was, after I watched that first episode where we see Travis Taylor coming in, and now that for John and I, we have that honor of knowing Travis as a person now. But you can see when Travis, in that very first episode, and Thomas Winterton says, well, the ranch reacts differently every time we bring somebody new onto the property. And Travis is like, you're talking like the ranch is actually alive. And Brandon's like, trying to say, well, take it seriously because you're not gonna be prepared for what you're gonna see, kind of type thing. And sure enough, Travis goes out there and to this day he still tells people, I thought for sure that I was gonna get out there and take about an hour and figure out what all the stuff is, and Scooby Doo this shit, and just it'll be a done deal. And sure enough, within about, an hour, presumably or so, that he's on the ranch that we see in that episode is when he starts seeing some things and experiencing some things that shouldn't be possible, or at least that are hard to figure out. And then, of course, the seasons unfold from that point to where we are right now, where the show is getting ready to enter. We're going to be seeing, what is it, season 7 that'll be coming out later this year, and just the amazing things that we have seen unfold on camera. Just think about, I mean, like the stuff that Ben Woodruff was talking about, just to touch upon what we were saying earlier. There's so much that happens on the ranch that gets caught on these cameras that the History Channel crew has, that end up on the cutting room floor for whatever reasons. And Thomas Winterton has said many times that what we actually end up seeing on the docuseries is maybe 1% of the stuff that actually gets filmed. So that's why there's a lot of really neat and exciting things that don't end up on the TV show that sometimes the team can't talk about because of their NDAs. But yeah, I went down that rabbit hole, and that's how I connected with John Nyberger. Was I think at the second Phenomicon, wasn't it, John? And that was when I met you too, Dustin, because it was through Jeff Freeman. You were passing by Jeff's table, and you introduced yourself, and uh, and so I remember meeting you there at that second Phenomicon. But what a rabbit hole to go down, Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, that is like truly the UFO hotspot. The entire Uinta Basin in Utah is such a hotbed of UAP activity and just strange phenomena in general. I know that there's been all kinds of really compelling cases in the Uinta Basin. Any of those that particularly stand out to you that you've been privy to?
So here's what's interesting about MUFON data. We don't have a lot of cases coming out of the Uinta Basin. I
Wow.
would say that the hot spots we see are southern Utah, especially around Canyonlands. That's where we see a lot of the reports. My theory is that the Uinta Basin has been experiencing so much phenomenon, especially in the late 60s and 70s when Frank Salisbury and Junior Hicks were looking into all this and wrote that amazing book, The Utah UFO Display. It's become so generational there that I'm not saying it's not impactful when people do see and experience things, but it's just part of their culture. And so it's not something that I think stands out as extraordinarily bizarre enough to report it, even though it is very extraordinarily bizarre what has and continues to go on there. So actually, we don't have a lot of cases out of Uinta Basin, to be truthful. The counties that are the top 4 per capita for unknown are all in southern Utah. Number 1 is Grand County with like Moab. There's some
Wow.
amazing cases out of there as well. In southern Utah, we just had a close encounter case from Hurricane. And if you're watching from outside of Utah,
Wow.
I know it's spelled hurricane, but we pronounce it hurricane for whatever
Hurricane. Yep.
yeah. That's a much deeper mystery than this UFO thing. But yeah, we have some amazing cases out of there in Moab. I just spoke with her the other day. It was a case that I did not cover, but I've always been fascinated because I dig through the database, and it was in the 60s. Her and her husband were driving outside of Moab, and they just saw this giant, I think it was 20 feet across, ball of light just right in front of their car, and it lit up the desert like it was night or like it was daytime. It was in the middle of the night. Freaked them out. She yelled to slam on the brakes. They thought they were going to hit it. They said this thing was vibrating. They could see the edges of it vibrating. And after a moment or two, it went off in the distance and went behind the mountains. Now, the husband thinks there's more to it. He thinks that there's possibly missing time. And I think he's probably right. And so cases like that are really, when you look at southern Utah, some of the most intense cases, like people being chased by lights, close encounters, that's really happening in southern Utah from MUFON's data standpoint. Now, I will say it's hypocritical of me to say that because the only UAPs that I've ever seen have all been in the Uinta Basin, 2 of which have been on Ryan Burns' property, Space Wolf Research. Shout out to Ryan Burns. He's been nothing but gracious to let people on his property. And this property shares a property line with Skinwalker Ranch. It's south of it. And I've seen orbs there. We caught one on camera. And then there was another one. It was actually at Phenomicon. We were out there late at night. We were walking around, not seeing anything. We were like, let's just call it a day. We were walking back to basically get in our cars and drive back to our hotels. And I saw me and another person saw an orange light up right above the mesa where Skinwalker Ranch is in. It went to the left maybe 3 seconds and disappeared. And then another time, it was out near Dinosaur Monument. We went out there with Jessica Blunt, who's a experiencer, and she's had like a million different experiences and sightings. And she actually called one in, and it just hovered there for a minute, and it kind of like it blew our minds. I still can't think about it without having like a chill run down my spine because we were seeing a lot of satellites that night. And whenever I'm out looking for stuff, I don't like to say, hey, that's a satellite, because you kind of bum people out. But when she took us out there, she kept seeing, hey, what's that? And I was like, oh, I'll research it later and make sure that it's not that. And once again, it's every time I've seen something, it's always to the point where the night's done. I'm like, I'm never going to see anything. This is sort of a bit of a bust, but it's kind of fun to be out here. And she called one in, and there was this orange light that just hovered in the sky for a minute in front of the clouds, and then it disappeared. And it was so bizarre. It's it really makes me believe that, yeah, you can call these things in, and there's certain people that are experiencers that have that ability to call them in. It really was magical. I don't know how she did it, and I want to go out there and see if she can do it again. I'm not putting any pressure on you, Jessica, but I would love to see that again and get more insight on what was going on there. But yeah, so the Uinta Basin is a hotspot for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. But for MUFON's data sake, we just don't have a lot of data from Uinta Basin.
Wow. Yeah.
Do you believe that might be due to like tourism aspect? I know that Moab tends to have a lot more outside people coming in and out of.
I think so. I think it could be that you have different people from out of state that maybe are more familiar with MUFON too, because there is other organizations like NUFORC, the National UFO Reporting Center, which is amazing. There's a new one called Enigma Labs, which is like a private enterprise that reports. So it's really about awareness too. So you could be right, John. There's a lot of people that are passing through Moab that are maybe more familiar with MUFON, and maybe Moab itself is more acquainted, the residents there. And so if someone stops at a gas station and says, "Hey, I saw this strange thing," maybe they're like, "Hey, you should report it to MUFON." And maybe we just don't have the kind of coverage or penetration in the minds of the people in Uinta Basin to report these things.
Yeah, if it happens near Vernal or Roosevelt, someone would probably just say, "Oh, yeah, that happens around here."
Yeah, they're like, "Yeah, my
And that would
mom
be it,
saw
like,
it. My uncle
yeah,
saw something in the
Yeah,
happens
70s."
all the
Yeah,
time. No big
it's
deal.
it's kind of passe to some of the folks that are out there. Yeah, I prior to Phenomicon last year, and it's weird because there's this activity that Roger and I always attend every year at Phenomicon called the Voice of the Believers Open Mic and Dinner, which they hold in the Remember the Maine State Park just outside of Vernal. It's absolutely the best barbecue food you've ever had. I mean, it's just amazing. They make everything in like this old chuck wagon style Dutch oven barbecue cooking, and my mouth just starts watering every time I start thinking of it. But after the dinner, they have this big bonfire that people sit around, and it's just an open mic opportunity for people to come forward and share the experiences that they've had. And you know, we've had people that have come through and told about their Sasquatch sighting experiences, that have talked about UFO sightings, ghosts, and paranormal shadow being experiences, just kind of the whole gamut. And last year, I was looking up in the sky while this one guy was doing running through his personal experience, and I saw something that just it did not it was too low to be a satellite, and it had that erratic movement of where it would move fairly quickly and then stop and then just kind of sit there for a second, and then it just like blink of an eye would shoot off toward the horizon. And that's probably the closest I've come to saying that I may have seen a UAP, but I'm still not an expert enough to know that what I saw couldn't have a rational explanation. But there are some people out there in that basin that have no question not only seen orbs, but have also seen nuts and bolts craft out there in the basin, and some of them very close up, some of them within 50 feet or less. They've actually seen some of these objects, and I myself, I can't imagine what that's like. We have all these great stories like the incident in Pascagoula, Mississippi, with the two guys that are fishing, and then we've got, of course, the Betty and Barney Hill case, the Travis Walton case, where there's these abduction phenomena that people experience missing time, or even if they don't know if they've been abducted, they have this sighting, and then they all of a sudden they can't account for several hours have passed and they are in a different place. I mean, it's such an engaging phenomena that I just every time you think you've seen and heard it all, something new comes forward. And that's the thing about Skinwalker Ranch, is there's always constantly something new coming up that makes its presence known in some way, shape, or form. That just it's like the gift that keeps on giving.
That Voice of the Believers, I went there last year, Jim. We chatted a little bit. You and Roger was there.
Yeah.
Amazing. I had never gone to that Voice of the Believers, but I highly recommend, because I think one of the questions I always get is, how do you vet that these people are telling the truth? How do you not know that they're crazy or on drugs and all these kind of things? Because that's sort of we're all byproducts of the environment we're in. And the environment in the United States growing up is that if someone saw a UFO, and especially if they came in contact with an alien, they're crazy.
They're
Or
crazy.
they're on
Yeah.
drugs, or
Yep.
they want attention, or they're trying to sell a book, or all these other things. And so I get the question a lot, well, how do you sort of know these people are telling the truth? Or what can you say to people that when you've talked with these people? And I think most people have not had that experience of sitting down and talking with people that have had these experiences. And I'm ashamed to say, when I first joined MUFON, I thought it'd be a flip of a coin. I thought 50% of the time I talk to someone, I'd be like, oh, they're crazy, they're out of their mind. The other 50%, I'd be like, okay, they're down to earth. I found that high 90% of people are down to earth, working class people, families. They're just like you and I, and they're telling the truth. And I think that Voice of the Experiencers, if you haven't sat down with experiencers before and you're still sort of on the fence, I would go there, because some of those stories And I don't know if you remember this one, Jim. Some guy was telling his Sasquatch story or a Bigfoot story. I think he was in his 60s, and he was shaking and getting emotional when talking about it. He goes, "God damn it,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
60 years old, and every time I think about it, I get scared." And you see how real and emotional these people are when they talk about their experiences, and it adds an insane amount of believability to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's just it really was a great event, and I look forward to going to it again this year because it is a place for people
Yeah.
to tell their experiences in a non-judgmental way, and it's a cool outing. You're in the middle of nowhere, you can see the stars. It's not a lot of light pollution out there, and like you said,
And
good food and
the
everything. So yeah,
food, oh my gosh.
yep.
Food is a very big part of my life, in case people can't tell, but I'm definitely a bit of a foodie, and I'm here to tell you folks, the chuck wagon dinner, the Dutch oven stuff that they fix out there for the Voice of the Believers, that alone is worth the price of admission. But like you're saying, Dustin, the atmosphere, I didn't really truly become an experiencer, not on the UFO realm, but in one of the other paranormal aspects. I've had a couple of really interesting, shall we say, encounters with shadow beings in my fairly recent history. And the big thing that it does for me, and I don't know, and Johnny, maybe it's like this for you because you've been involved in some interesting things, but you go through this metamorphosis, for want of a better term, when you go from being like I was, a casual believer that some of these things could be and likely are true, to actually experiencing something firsthand that is not supposed to be possible, that is not supposed to be real, but yet it happens right there in front of you. And even more so, like in the case of Roger and I, where it happened to both of us at the same time. Because a lot of the experiences that I've had have been with when it's just me around. But when you've got somebody else that's there, that experiences that moment with you, or somebody that even if, even if they didn't have a witness there with them, you can tell when somebody is telling you the truth because just the tone of their voice, the body language, their eyes. I mean, and like you're saying, Dustin, I would say easily 90% of the people that stand up and tell those stories at the Voice of the Believers, these are people that clearly get very emotional because either number one, it was traumatic for them and it scared the bejesus out of them and it has completely wrecked their life to some extent, or it has been one of the things that has drawn them closer to their faith, that has made them realize that we are a part of something far bigger in the universe than they ever realized. And when you see people in person, when you get to see them, and I also talk about how the first time I met Travis Walton, because I wasn't sure what to make of his story until I met him in person and had a chance to talk to him one on one for about 10 minutes and to look into his eyes and to hear him talking. I 100% believe everything that Travis Walton has told me, and his story has never varied. He's told the same story without any kind of variation in it, and it's really something to experience. Once you cross that threshold from being just a casual believer to somebody that has actually experienced one of these extraordinary incidents or events, it changes you forever, and it changes you on a core foundational level. Because I can never unsee or deny the things that I saw and experienced. And Johnny, I don't know if you feel the same way with what you've experienced. And John, you're just plain old, paranormal kryptonite. So
I am.
Yeah,
If
we've
someone
talked about
wants,
stealing John.
yeah, if someone is out there and they've got some paranormal activity happening that they want to get rid of, just bring me over. It'll stop. I don't even try. It's just
Mm,
like I don't
and
have
you
to do
hadn't
anything
even thought
apparently.
about what I suggested, that look, if you came to my house, you'd probably completely lose your kryptonite.
Well,
Uh,
I'm
you know.
I am up for that experiment, my friend. You know it. I'd come
John,
over
I'm
Well,
talking
anytime.
road trip to Johnny's place, you and me, buddy.
Absolutely. I would love to do
We'll
that.
pick up the
I'll
Dino Beaver on the way.
I'll show
There
you
you
some
go.
spots, but,
All right.
Jim's absolutely right about the change, and, y for one of my, earliest events that had occurred that's related to all this that people have heard about with the 7-foot-ish tall wolf walking on 2 legs, had there not been two witnesses at the exact same time seeing the exact same thing standing, a witness standing right next to me seeing the same thing, that wouldn't have been taken the same way. And for you to be able to have that moment where there's validity to what you just saw, it's really important because,
Validation,
you know,
100%.
all of the events that I've experienced in my life that have been solo, where no one else has witnessed them and there's something odd about it, I have to walk through a process. Am I crazy is the first question that I ask. Is this in my head? And most of the time I like to say that might be in my head, but I don't know if it's in my head, so let me document this. And documentation is probably the biggest thing. It might seem ridiculous to document absolutely every little thing because 90% of it can just be, you know, sleep paralysis or, you saw something in your brain tricked you into thinking you saw something. But for a person to have witnessed something and truly believe it says a lot. Now, like we were talking about people thinking, oh, this person's on drugs, this person's crazy. I can tell you, I don't even know the numbers of times. I've interacted with a lot of people on drugs. I've interacted with people thinking that they're Jesus Christ, people thinking that they've been abducted by aliens, all different manner of this sort of thing with the drug involvement. I've dealt with people thinking all of those things outside of the drug involvement, but specifically, if you spend time with people that are using drugs and have these thoughts, these outbursts, this alternate reality they experience, you'll start to realize there's a difference. You can kind of tell what's drug induced and what seems to be possibly true, what seems to be their reality. Because no matter what, it's going to be their reality, what they're experiencing, what they're thinking. But the drug induction aspect of it, that is something that with time and experience of dealing with people, you'll start to really learn. And I think it would be a valuable thing for anyone that investigates any kind of paranormal activity to also try to do things that get you around people, like in a clinical environment. Don't just go out and talk to your local homeless person at 2 o'clock in the morning, but go out there and interact with people that are actually documented to have schizophrenia, drug problems, things of that nature that have talked about this. And you can kind of see how they talk, how they act about it when they're in their fits, so to speak. And you'll start to notice a difference with how people act. That local person that is an upstanding citizen that comes to you and is like, I think I got abducted by aliens. Hits a little different than homeless Joe down the street looking
Mhm.
for another rock going, man, they got me again.
Yeah.
There's a difference, and we all know that. But I think that's a really important aspect is, credibility of the person talking to you. Because, you know, if I come forward and start talking about aliens to the public, it carries a certain level of credibility. But someone who's known to be on drugs or have a psychological condition, there's no credibility. Thankfully, most people I imagine that are coming to MUFON might have a little bit of credibility at least.
I would
Yeah.
say a lot of credibility in the sense that they are working class people, have families.
Mhm.
You have all sorts of socioeconomic levels. People from the military. We get a lot of people from the military, pilots, people that have jobs that really have other lives on the line that do get tested from a occupational standard. And like you said, from the drug aspect, there are a lot of occupations that get regularly tested just to see if they're on drugs. But yeah, like I said, I found the high 90%. Like every now and again, I've talked with people where I would say, yeah, they're not of sound mind, is how we kind of put it. We won't say it to them, but you may put it in the report saying they're not of
Yeah.
sound mind. But man, most people we talk to, very credible. Their story hasn't changed. And they just seem like good, down to earth people that want to share their piece of the puzzle now. And we're starting to see, at least I am, there's a lot more people that have held this in for a lot longer and are now willing to share it. So, for
Yeah.
example, we just got a case in from Ogden. Man was 13 years old in 1967, and he was living in Ogden. His mom bought him a pair of binoculars from the local Kmart back when we still had Kmarts around. And he said he was outside. It was around sunset, and he was checking out these new binoculars, and he could see between his neighbor's house and the garage, and he was looking at kind of like the horizon where the airport was at. And he said he was looking at planes taking off and landing, taking off and landing. And all of a sudden he saw this strange silhouette of what we'd describe as like a typical saucer, moving across the sky. He remembered the exact 3 lights that were on it. He said they were moving in clockwise manner, and it just froze in midair, and it just hovered there. And he was like, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. So he's looking at it through the binoculars. He's like, this is bizarre. So he ran inside to grab his sister, who's 2 years older. They run outside. They start looking at that area of sky. They don't see anything. They don't see anything for 5 minutes. His sister's like, come on, man, stop playing with me. I'm going back inside. This is just a joke. They're walking back inside. And as they're walking back inside, he says, I feel this intense rumbling in my entire body. And he said, it was almost like magnetic. And he started hearing this humming sound. He looked up, him and his sister saw this big black object that was blocking out the sky that was as big as the house in the backyard. And it was just there, hovering. And he said he could see the stars around it, but this thing was just blocking everything out. They see it for what they believe is just a short while, and then it just shoots off. He said he believes he heard some like quick pop sound when it left. They run inside. They try to tell their mother. Their mother's like, nah, you guys probably just saw something weird. It's probably nothing. Wrote it off. He goes to school the next day, or later when school was going on because it's summertime, tries to tell his best friend. His best friend's like, come on, man, you didn't see anything like that. So eventually he just gives up trying to tell people. He even said him and his sister wouldn't even talk about it anymore. And for years go by. His sister moves out of state when she's 18. He doesn't see her in person for 15 years. She comes back. He picks her up from the airport. They're driving around. He finally gets up enough courage to ask her about this incident that they'd never talked about afterwards. And he said, I asked her, hey, do you remember that time we were in the backyard? And before he could finish the sentence, she cut him off and said, yeah, I do. They began talking about it a little bit. He's now 70 years old. His sister passed away last year. He's now dealing with some health issues. He said, I finally felt enough courage, and I felt that I need to get this on paper somehow. I need to get this in some database. And he's going to draw me a picture of what he saw, because he said for years he drew this picture over and over and over again of what he saw. And he said, I got tired of people just not wanting to see it or not caring that I saw this or thought I was crazy. So he said, I stopped drawing this. Times have changed. And I wish I could say that he was the only person that we've had hold this off for 40, 50 years, but it's not. We get cases like this all the time. There was one from Manti from the 50s. This guy came just forward last year, and he had a newspaper article. His parents saw it and reported it to the local newspaper. And he's older now. I think he's in his 80s, this other guy. And he's like, I just want to get this down on record and talk to people that are willing to listen to me. And I think that's a huge part of this phenomenon. People need to listen. These stories deserve to be told. And we as humanity, if we're trying to figure out what this is, we have to listen. And people aren't doing that. They're doing it more now. But I think that's what I tell people with the reason they haven't been exposed to experiencers and they may think they're still crazy and on drugs and all this thing is because they never had that opportunity to sit down with someone and in a non-judgmental way have their stories be told them.
That is such a key factor too, non-judgmental.
Exactly.
Because like this poor guy you were talking about, he tried to talk about it and everyone shuts him down. And I feel like that's a pretty common experience for people that have seen something that they yearn for some, I'm forgetting the word I'm looking for, confirmation. There we go. Some confirmation that they're not crazy and they did see something. And quite often they're not getting that.
Yeah, I don't think people
Absolutely.
realize how much people can get shaken up by something like this. When you're confronted with something that's completely outside of your reality or in your realm of experience, that can shake you up. I think I've told this story before, but one of my brothers, just I think it was last couple of years, just on the Colorado side of the Uinta Basin, so just a little bit east of the ranch, he saw something. And it was in late afternoon driving home from work. He called me as soon as he got to his house, and he was kind of shaken up. He described it, told me what happened. The next day, he's at work. It's like 8:30 in the morning. I get another phone call. I'm like, what's going on? Because he never calls me from work in the morning. And he's like, man, I just can't get that out of my head. And I don't think he really had a lot of people he could call. He knew he could call me because he knows I'm into this stuff. But I don't think he had a lot of people he could just say, look, that was kind of freaky what I saw, And so I think that is a large component of an investigation or research or, however you want to phrase it. But I think that's important to listen to people. I mean, yeah, sure, you can make some judgments, but I know he wasn't on drugs. He wasn't hallucinating.
Yeah.
I know this for
Yeah.
certain. And he just needed someone to be there to say, yep, what you saw was probably real. The sort of thing happens. Heck, you're only like 50 miles from the ranch. So who knows? Maybe it was coming from the ranch or something. But yeah, I think it can shake people up.
Absolutely.
That's been one of the great things that I've been watching. We've all been watching unfold since 2017 is the destigmatization, at least as far as the UAP topic goes. Because again, I was never the kind that would have openly talked about my casual belief prior to 2017 that UFOs might be real and whatnot. That we've had all of these congressional hearings. We've had people like David Grush and Commander David Fravor and Ryan Graves, George Knapp, Admiral Tim Gallaudet, all these really super credible people. And of course, knowing Jay Stratton as we do, and can't wait to read his memoirs that's coming out very soon, that I'm sure will have some even more interesting insights and details. But the whole reason that Roger and I started the Soul of the Unexplained was to mainstream the topic. Now, granted, we have a super small footprint on on YouTube and everywhere else in the world, but the way that you destigmatize something is by talking about it and letting people know it's okay to talk about it. Because at the end of the day, really, none of us really know the true nature of what some of this is. Now, you get some people that have that confirmation bias that, oh, it's clearly extraterrestrial hypothesis. That's all that it can be. It's some civilization, some intelligence from somewhere else in the cosmos, somewhere else in the universe coming to Earth, interacting with us. When the reality is, it could be a number of other things just as easily as it could be that. It could be, interdimensional. It could be what has been called the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, which is probably one that I'm really starting to put a lot of attention to right now, where we've been told, and in fact, Representative Tim Burchett came out this last week and said that, there might be as many as 5 to 6 underwater bases of non-human intelligence that appear to that's where some of these craft are operating out of at extreme depths in our oceans. And especially when you consider the fact that the overwhelming majority of the ocean ocean floors, particularly at the deeper depths, we've never mapped. We don't know half of as much as we would like to know about what is truly in our oceans. So we may be dealing with some of these sightings. This may be a civilization that has always been here on planet Earth, that maybe even predates humanity. Maybe they've been here alongside us the entire time, which would account for potentially all the ancient scripture sightings that you hear from the Hindu scriptures and from the early biblical accounts, Ezekiel's wheel and all these things. There are so many possibilities of what the origin of this non-human intelligence could be. And I think that's fascinating. I think if we try to put all of our eggs in one basket and just say, no, it can only be the traditional ET, the aliens coming from other planet systems. Now, again, I think that's perfectly possible. I'm not ready to put all of my eggs in that one basket. I'm not ready to put all my eggs in any of the baskets. I just want to say, well, I will say I think that non-human intelligence is real. I think it is here on Earth. I think it's been visiting Earth and probably still maintains a presence of some kind. I think we're probably dealing with multiple non-human intelligences. And again, is that multiple extraterrestrial races or interdimensional beings, what have you? I don't know, but uh, I believe even more so that this stuff is real. And like you were saying, Dustin, at one event at Phenomicon, the Voice of the Believers dinner, that's really genuinely a safe space where people have come, and I have heard some accounts that people have given of their own experiences that, send a chill down my spine. Sometimes in a very good way, sometimes in a very bad way. And I can think back now, this will be my 6th year attending Phenomicon. And so all the previous 5 years that Roger and I have attended that event, I can think of all the dozens, if not hundreds of people that I've listened to at that event. I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 that I was listening to and going, "Yeah, that's bullshit. There's no way." Just the way that the person's talking, you just gotta feel that they're just trying to, tell a story to get attention from people, to get in with the crowd or something like that. But most of them, I would say, like you said, Dustin, at least probably 80, 90% of the people that I hear that tell those stories, uh, I think they're speaking from genuine experience. I really do. And Johnny, I can't even imagine what you experienced in that moment when you saw that wolf creature. Man,
I mean, I
I
can tell you, I thought it was awesome.
I don't think
You
that would
gotta,
be my reaction. I'd probably be like, "Okay, am I high right now?"
well, you gotta put yourself in the shoes of, I forget how young I was, but like, this was, sometime between, you know, maybe like 5th grade and like 6th grade, somewhere around there. I couldn't tell you for sure. So put yourself in someone that age's shoes, young dude that plays a lot of video games. You know, it was cool. That was where my brain went like, "Oh my god, this is awesome." And then later on, it kind of sets in that like, "Hey, that's not normal. That's not I don't think that's cool. That's not safe." But at the time, you got to think about where I would have
Yeah,
been in my shoes at that time. Nowadays, if I see that kind of thing, of course, my perspective's a little different. So, I'm more like, "Well, that's interesting. Okay."
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and I keep going back to my Hat Man encounter that I had a couple years ago. I'm still trying to make sense of it, and that's the thing, 'cause, I still attend church. My wife's gonna throw something at me because I don't go as often as I should. But, I'm still an active practicing, member of my faith. But the things that I experienced in that Hat Man experience, according to my religious teachings, are not supposed to be possible. And what happens when your religion that you're taught your whole life doesn't have an answer for it? And, I'd be lying if I said that wasn't where a lot of my issue comes from, in trying to reconcile what I saw, what I experienced with what my spiritual upbringing tells me is supposed to be possible. Because I was clearly wide awake when I had the experience. And then to have my sisters validate certain aspects of my experience, because this happened to me, the same being visited me when I was a child, and they remember me telling the story about this when I had the experiences as a child. And yet, for 50 some odd years, that memory had been erased from my mind until this Hat Man thing appeared to me in my home. And it was like instantly it flipped a switch in my brain, and I instantly recalled my experiences that I saw him as a child. So there's these kind of things, and I know it's not UAP related, but still, there are things that you experience that are not normal, is the best way that I could say them. And I don't know still what this thing was that I saw, what the purpose was. The intent, I know, was definitely malicious when I saw it. There was no question that that was kind of the vibe that I got out of it. But it's one of those things where, whether it's people that are experiencing Sasquatch, or seeing orbs, or seeing a nuts and bolts craft up close, um, or seeing a shadow being, any of these things are not everyday occurrences for most people, right? So that's why they're so extraordinary, and it's i- it's a burden that people that experience those things, it's a real heavy burden to bear for some people. And the thing that I've found is by being able to talk to people like all of you guys and so many of our subscribers and people that are friends of ours, particularly in the Skinwalker Ranch Insider community, have had a lot of the same type of experiences and they can relate. And it's kind of like, when people have a shared trauma or have a shared experience, it it's good for the soul to talk about because it makes you it reassures you that maybe I'm not crazy because these things do happen to other people. And I think as this UFO disclosure continues to unfold, there's going to be some people that are going to be a lot better situated, emotionally and mentally to be able to handle it. Because of the things that we're hearing and seeing that are going to be coming out before too long, there's going to be a segment of society that are really going to be hit pretty hard with ontological shock because they're still the ones that are saying, it's all a tinfoil hat. You watch one too many episodes of Star Trek. You've been playing Dungeons and Dragons too long. Whatever they say to dismiss the notion. And it's going to be that way until they're confronted with the reality that they can't deny anymore. And um, I'm glad I'm not going to be one of those people. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. And you just struck a thought to bring us back to something that Dustin had mentioned earlier. So you mentioned that MUFON has resources and things like that for people. And, for the viewer's sake, if anyone's struggling with anything, what could you dive deeper into what you guys have when someone needs a little bit of help?
Sure. Yeah. So with the experiencer resource team, when it comes to contact with non-human intelligence, it's sort of like a special group within MUFON. And the biggest reason it was created, and it was created by Kathleen Martin, who's the niece of Betty and Barney Hill.
Oh, great.
An amazing person who's done a lot of research into this, and herself has helped so many people with dealing with what's going on. Um, it's we're listening to these stories in a very non-judgmental way. That's the main thing. You have to be a great listener if you're going to be part of the ERT, and just listen to them. We also have vetted lists of therapists, hypno-regression therapists, and support groups. So one of the things, if someone wants to be on the list, they have to apply because we want to make sure that they're very familiar with this phenomenon. We don't want them to just send them to a therapist that's like, you saw an alien, what's going on? Like, we don't want any of that. We want people that understand this phenomenon. A lot of these providers may themselves be experiencers, either that or they truly believe that this phenomenon is real. And so we want it to be safe and want them to get help because, like you guys have said, it's very life-changing. Everything you ever taught in school, everything you ever taught by your parents, your religion, your community, all that can crumble in a couple of seconds. In a little as a couple of seconds with your encounter. And all that's gone. And you're standing in a bunch of rubble going, what the hell? I thought the world was a certain way, and apparently it's not.
Mhm.
So we want to make sure that those people get help. I think the biggest thing that people are looking for is support groups. They want to, I've heard it a million times. Tell me that you've heard other people have these kind of experiences before. They want to make sure that they're not alone. And
Yeah.
and you hit on it, Stratton. You were talking about how when you first have these experiences, people go, am I insane? Am I crazy? They start looking into their own psychological being and going, man, I must be off my rocker. I didn't see an alien. I must have something wrong with me. That's most people's first reaction because of the environment we grew up with. People saying that if you come in contact with a being, that you're crazy. And we just want to create really a safe spot for people to go and seek these if they need help. Hypnoregression therapies, if you want to regain those memories. Some people do, some people don't, for a million different kind of reasons. But yeah, and then also just therapists as well, because it can be very traumatizing if they just want to talk
Yeah.
to someone in a setting
And
and talk it out.
I think that therapists in general, mental health professionals, it's a very touchy place to try to talk about this stuff because I know, so if people probably already realize this, I've mentioned it before, with my profession, with my kind of career field, all the jobs that I've been involved with, I have to go through psychological evals. And honestly, if they tried to delve deeper into this topic with me, I would be on edge. I'd be on guard because anything that I say related to this topic could potentially blacklist me from doing my job, because these people look at me like, oh, crazy, check, he's done, just because they're not someone who puts any amount of faith in the possibilities of all of this type of topic. And so
Mhm.
it's touchy to have that trust for a mental health professional that could potentially ruin your life, essentially, as a mental health professional, by labeling you and blacklisting you from being able to ever do all these things.
Yeah.
For me, that would my career would be done if I fail a psych eval. So it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's always been, one of the things that um, pilots in the military have contended with for over a generation, where they're afraid of coming forward and reporting something that they encountered during their flight time for risk of losing their flight status, right? That's been a very real threat that's been hung over their heads. And some people have actually been have lost their flight status because they've reported incidents that they encountered while they were on a training mission or whatever, whether military or civilian. And thankfully, we've got organizations like Ryan Graves, Americans for Safe Aerospace, that are trying to destigmatize that. And we've seen the military make pretty large efforts in trying to do away with that aspect of not punishing people that come forward that are pilots for the Navy or Marine Corps or whoever, where it's now being funneled through an organization like Arrow, I think, which will be a conversation for a different day. but but yeah, it's this destigmatization is definitely happening, and I think one of the things that's been a huge boon to helping that has been age of disclosure, right? And not just age of disclosure, but also the updated documentary that James Fox did, "The Moment of Contact," with the new revelations that have come out with that. So there's a lot of things that have been taking place to help the process of mainstreaming this conversation. And some of the people that have been leading that charge are people like Dan Farah, uh, Brandon Fugel with his projects at Skinwalker Ranch, all of our friends that are out at Skinwalker Ranch doing the scientific investigation, and so many other people that are really truly trying to move the needle forward in a meaningful way to capture data and to interpret that data to make sure that it's not going to be, just confirmation bias that's going out there to say, oh, well, yep, sure enough, these are aliens coming from Zeta Reticuli. Which is why the ones that are the more credible people out there are the ones that aren't making statements like that. They're the ones that are saying we're getting really compelling data. The data is confirming that there truly is something anomalous. There really is a there, if that makes any sense. And it's very encouraging to see that. Now, along with that, and John, I know you feel this way. It's really hard not to get jaded at times to see all of the people that are purposely trying to muddy the water. And some of them are doing it deliberately, but also some are just simply the way that they roll things out isn't really very very good, I guess, for to be nice about it. So it's hard to sometimes tell when some of the data does come forward, you know, uh there's lots of examples out there with Dr. Greer that has put some samples out there swearing that it's, anomalous stuff like these mummies that came out recently, or the Atacama skeleton that was discovered that have since been proven to be anything but anomalous. But yet so many are trying to say, well, no, it's really this, and so it's a difficult minefield to have to walk through, right? Because there's a lot of bad actors out there. Some of them are purposely trying to muddy the waters, and some of them, just because of their own personal confirmation bias, they are making the disclosure process more complicated than it needs to be. Um, so it's kind of difficult sometimes, isn't it, John, to kind of maintain your optimism on, is this really coming? Is it really going to happen the way that we want it to? What are your quick thoughts on that, John?
No, it absolutely is, especially when, we know, I like to say that at least a handful of the current big names in the field, whether they are alleged whistleblowers or whatever, are full of crap. We know it. And they're still placed on a sort of pedestal as if they were telling the truth. It's a really frustrating thing to watch happen. And that sort of thing is frustrating. But just in general, I think a greater issue is the lack of good data. We get some good reports, but we just don't have a lot of good data.
Yeah.
And I guess that's bringing it back around to MUFON. That's one of the places where you do get some data. A lot of reports end up just being reports with other places. But with MUFON and probably New Fork and the others, at least you get some data. You'll get, if they have them, you'll get the photos, you'll get the videos. You'll get an entry in a database that you can now go look up. You can compare. If you hear someone else that had a sighting, you can go look back in the database in that area and see, oh, let's look to see if there were other reports in the same area around the same time of a similar object, see if there's something that can corroborate it. That's at least something. That's more than we get with most sighting reports. So that's one of the things I like about MUFON. I was a member for a few years, just initially just to have access to the database, because that's a lot of fun to just browse the database. The sightings database is fascinating. So that's one of the
on
best
that
things
idea,
about it.
John. We got to ask for the viewers at home, how does someone join MUFON? Let's take that away.
Sure. Yeah. So just MUFON.com, MUFON.com. And there's a membership thing. I think the basic membership $7 a month, or you can pay for the whole year for $60. That's what I have, just a basic membership. That's all you need. And it'll give you access to the database. The original synopsis is someone submits any screenshots or videos that they originally submit. But what's great about it is you can search granularly. So you could search for things that happen in your hometown. You can search for, was it Tic Tac shaped? Was it saucer shaped? You can search from date ranges, a lot of different colors, things like that. So you can really nail it down. So it is great to corroborate certain things. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that case from 1967, I was looking back at the MUFON database, and sure enough, there was another case that came in from around the same time as Sunset, where someone saw a saucer in the area, pretty close to the same area where he was at.
I love correlative data.
It's amazing. It really is. And we live in such an amazing time where we can do that now, where we can just search for something, not have to go look up books and microfiche and all that stuff. So it's great to be able to get this data and corroborate. And I think it helps with people who submit the reports. You say, hey, look at this other report that came in from New Fork or MUFON that's corroborating what you're saying. I think it's validation for them, and it makes them feel good that, yeah, there's other people seeing things as well.
That's awesome. Do you have to be a member to put in a report is a big question too.
No, you do not need to be a member to put in a report at all. So anyone can go there and submit a report. We pretty much have, not every state has field investigators, but we have people outside the state that will investigate. We try to investigate what's inside our state because we just happen to know the area better. So all the cases coming to Utah come to our crew. Now the ERT is a little different. There's not as many members, so I will get cases out of state, investigated cases from Idaho, Nevada. The other day was one from Oregon. Yeah, it's sometimes you'll get people in the state, sometimes you won't. But we also were worldwide. They have chapters in countries. There's people in Canada and France and all these other areas that are getting amazing reports flooding in.
How many field investigators does Utah have right now, roughly?
So Utah, we have 3 now. We just barely got a new guy, Ken, really good guy. And my prayers have been answered, because I really needed another field investigator, and I was praying to God that they'd be in southern Utah, because that's where we're seeing a lot of crazy cases, and he just so happens to be in southern Utah, so it happens perfectly. We have one person in southern Utah. Ben Stoll, the assistant state director, he's out in Vernal, so he's at the Uinta Basin, and then I'm in the Salt Lake area. So
Yeah,
we got
I
pretty
know
good
Ben.
coverage.
He's a good dude.
He's
Yeah,
awesome.
I
Ben's
know
the
He's a
Ben
best.
good
too,
dude.
but didn't realize he was part of MUFON. I mean, I
He
just
is.
I know him from the
Yeah.
insiders and
That was one of the first
Phenomenon. Yeah.
conversations I had with him. He's pretty cool.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
he's a
I
good
had no
dude.
idea. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're lucky to have Ben. He's been an amazing addition, and yeah, he's the assistant state director.
I keep saying it, Dustin, but I've got to join. I really do, and
That would be awesome.
And I'm really excited for this presentation that you're going to be giving on March 7th. So before we segue into that, because this is going to kind of tie into what your presentation is going to be on. So
and
folks,
I do have one more question related, but please go on.
Sure. No, go ahead, Jonny. Go ahead.
Okay, so we were talking about field investigators. So what does someone need to have as a credential or a background? What makes someone able to be a good field investigator for you?
I think, and this is maybe toot my own horn because I'm in IT, I think thinking analytically in steps. I think that's huge. What's even more important is being able to listen. You have to sit on the phone and listen to these people's experiences. I have no problem with it because I'm fascinated by the subject, but I think some people may want to interject too many times and want to ask too many questions, or not necessarily ask too many questions, but interrupt too many times. So I'd say be a good listener, be analytical, because most cases are sightings. And so it's really, you're going down this checklist. You're checking air traffic. You're checking astronomy data. You're checking, was there satellites? Was it the International Space Station? So you're really looking in steps. So I'd say be analytical and be a great listener. And of course, I think most people that are into becoming a field investigators is being interested in the phenomenon, knowing the history of it, and reading books about it, and just sort of diving into it.
That's excellent. Sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
No worries. So, gentlemen, just in the last 36 hours, we've had kind of an interesting bit of news come across the wires here in the form of former President Barack Obama, who did a podcast appearance recently. And during the course of that podcast, he made a rather jaw-dropping statement. And that statement was basically, and I'm paraphrasing here, but folks, it's all out there on the internet. Most of them, several of the mainstream media organizations even have a little bit that they've reported on it. But Obama basically says aliens are real. And not only does he say aliens are real, but he specifically said, however, they are not being kept in an underground facility at Area 51. So what I want to posit to all three of you and to all of our subscribers, first of all, the fact that Obama said it, I mean, it was a pretty direct statement. And I went back and listened to it and watched it for context. There's no doubt in my mind that he meant to say what he said. So the question is, did he do that on purpose as a strategic move, maybe to spur on Donald Trump, simply because we've also been hearing through various channels in the UFO, UAP community over the last couple of weeks that Trump has in fact been planning on making a statement of some kind through one of his advisors or press secretaries, essentially acknowledging that we are not alone on this planet or in the universe. So whether or not that happens to be true, that Trump was planning that, just kind of want to go around the room here. The first question is, number one, were you surprised to see Obama just simply drop this seemingly out of the blue? Or do you think that maybe this may have been a calculation on his part to not necessarily perhaps steal Trump's thunder, but maybe spur Trump on and say, okay, now is the time to really bring this out into the open? So, Dustin, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on it?
So I heard him print it out because it's very quick. I just want to make sure that we have word for word what went on in this interview. So, and it's very quick. So the interviewer is doing a lightning round. He said, "Are aliens real?" And Obama said, "They're real, but I haven't seen them. They're not being kept in, what is it?" And the interviewer says, Area 51. He goes, Area 51. There's no underground facility unless there's this enormous conspiracy and they hid it from the president of the United States. Now, to analyze, I think we have to be very careful, and I'm not picking on Obama, but I think politicians are very specific with their words. First of all, you can never ask them a yes or no question because you'll never get a yes or no. I find it interesting that out of nowhere, he decides to say that there's no underground facility. Like, why even mention that? That seems very strange to me. Like, why even bring that up? Just say, yeah, Area 51. Unless there's an enormous conspiracy they hid from the president. Now, he says he's not seen them and that he knows that they're not in Area 51. Now, we know there's many, many, many other military bases where they could be. So when he's asked this question and he's saying, I've never seen them and I know they're not in Area 51, he's not saying that they're not in other places.
Exactly.
As well as underground bases such as Dugway, which we know is an enormous area with a lot of underground territory that can be kept things. And a lot of people do believe that Area 51.
That's one of the rumors about Dugway.
That's one of the rumors, is that after the blow up with everyone learning about Area 51, is they moved everything to Dugway proving grounds.
Yep.
I don't know if there's any as far as him trying to steal Trump's thunder. I will say that I was a little disappointed. I'm not a political guy. I'm independent.
Same.
I was a little disappointed because I remember when Trump was running for president this time around and the whole drone thing was going on in Jersey. He claimed that, I'm going to get to the bottom of it and give information about that. And then when he became president, he's like, there was no big thing. The FAA knew about it. And we go, well, what was it? And he never expanded on what that was. I'm sort of I guess like you say, I'm pessimistic. I don't think the government's ever going to come clean about this, and definitely not in the way that we want them to. So yeah, I don't know if what Obama was saying there, maybe it was something that he just he made slip, because it is interesting. And he said, "Are aliens real? They're real," is what he said. Mm-hmm. And the interviewer didn't expound upon that. He didn't ask any follow up.
That was disappointing.
That was disappointing. And the other disappointing thing is, I go, man, the comment section must be blowing up about this alien thing. So at the time I saw this, there was about 3.5 million views. There's around 21,621 comments. And I scrolled for a couple thousand comments and just searched. And there was only 2 comments about the alien thing that he said. It's weird when you're living inside this bubble. I call it the alien bubble, where this is the most fascinating, interesting thing in the world that you can't stop thinking about. And when you meet people like you guys here, that's all we want to talk about. But when you leave that bubble, people seem to not care. They're like, oh yeah, he said something about aliens. So anyways, I was going to the steakhouse. It was really good. They don't want to talk about it. They're not as interested as we are. And it's hard for us to understand why they're not that interested in it. So for us, it's the biggest thing in the world, going, come on, just tell us what it's about. But when the majority of the country doesn't really care, it's hard for politicians to sort of want to roll the dice on saying whether or not they're real, or even giving any sort of data out.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonny, how about you? What are your thoughts on Obama's statement?
So I might be a little different here, because the most fascinating part of what he stated was, unless there's this conspiracy that hid it from the president of the United States. Well, I'm going to use a royal we here for a moment, but we already know that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that, and it's been discussed pretty thoroughly at some of the highest levels. They talk about it in Age of Disclosure. I've heard it talked about for years in other circles. There really is a bureaucratic system that keeps a lot from the president of the United States, especially in this topic. And I think it's funny that his first question when he got to the White House is, are aliens real? He jokes about that. Well, they're hiding that stuff from the president of the United States. That's something we kind of already understand. So I don't think that it's very far-fetched for there to be things that they're just not telling him. And, especially back then, we didn't trust any politician. And I don't think that we're ever really going to trust politicians. So that is a very fascinating part of what the former president had said. And, politically love him or hate him, I don't care. I respect every president because we want our country to succeed. But, I find it very interesting that he would come out now and say something along those lines of aliens are real. Now, there's a lot of talk about, aliens are here, aliens are there. Very recently, I won't name names of who said it, but they decided to say that a particular naval air station that's, in the general region which I live has aliens, and this is where they're at. whale. Good God, people, stop trying to break into a secure area of a base, because holy crap. Like, I wouldn't think this would be an issue, but like, I'm surprised no one's been shot yet. That's the level of which people are stupid trying to get into these places to get evidence that aliens are real. I mean, if I'll throw this out as if, maybe aliens are not real. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. If there are aliens and if they're in a secure facility, unless you have the credentials in which you're probably not going to share it, you are not going to gain access to where they are. You're going to get shot. You're going to get arrested. Something's going to happen. I swear. I never thought that this would genuinely be an issue. It reminds me of the Rush Area 51 program that people tried to do.
100%.
It's insane to me, but I'm pretty hopeful that maybe this isn't the first thing. I think the interviewer probably wasn't prepared for him to give that answer.
Mhm.
I think the
I agree.
interview, I don't
Yeah,
think he
that's-
had any follow-up. So
That's the impression I was left with. Yes.
I think that what we might see in the future, if we're lucky, is that former President Barack Obama will come onto something maybe along the lines of age of disclosure. Maybe they can get him out for an interview, sit him down, talk to him, because as any politician, he loves cameras, he loves microphones. Maybe Dan Farah can reach out, get him on that round 2. We've talked about there being potentially a round 2 of age of disclosure. I'm hopeful. That would be fascinating if we could get someone like him on.
Absolutely. John, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Very similar to what Dustin and Jonny already said. I think there's 3 components to it, and I can't begin to guess at his motivation. The first part, him just coming flat out and saying aliens are real. That was already interesting because he's been on, like late night talk shows, and he's done interviews before, at least 2 that I've seen, where people have asked him those sorts of questions and he deflects, as you would expect.
100%.
This was no deflection at all.
Yeah.
This was, they are real. There was no hemming and hawing. He was not equivocating. This was unequivocal. Yes, they are real. And I think that's massive. But just the way he said it was so matter of fact that I think you're right. The interviewer probably was expecting an equivocation, just like he always has given before. He wasn't prepared for, they're real.
Exactly.
So he was like, wait a second.
Stephen Colbert asked him this question and he said, I don't know, but if I did, I probably wouldn't tell you.
Right. Yeah. So I think the guy was probably expecting that. And then the second component, which Dustin mentioned, is him saying, and by the way, they aren't in an underground facility at Area 51, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yeah, I think that was being
deliberate.
Technically correct.
I think it was
but a little
misleading.
Absolutely. I think it was deliberate. And then I think the second part was also, unless there's a conspiracy to hide it from the president of the United States. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Yes.
There are people in Age of Disclosure who worked for Obama as, national security advisor or director of national intelligence or whatever they were at the time. Yeah.
What was his name?
And so
most of the people worked under Obama.
Obama knows for sure. He's like, there's no doubt in my mind that he knows there's more to this story that's not making it to him. So I think that was also wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe someone ought to ask more about this and check into it,
But do you think that there's a possibility he's also trying to let on that he knows more than he does too, to try to get more information?
Could be. And I do kind of like the idea that it was meant to put pressure on the current administration, because there is, with Age of Disclosure and other movies and other venues, there is a kind of a tide of disclosure. There's a wave coming. I mean, it ebbs and flows, but Congress is still seem to be pretty serious about tackling this. And I think, again, with the rumors going around of potential disclosure by Trump in June I mean, they've even named a date like June 8th or something. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I mean, he's got to read Dad's book first.
Right,
Maybe he's got to do
exactly.
right?
that.
Read the
Exactly.
book, and then at least wait for Disclosure Day to come out. I think maybe that's it. He's trying to beat Disclosure Day, but I think maybe this was kind of a way to entirely unexpectedly put some. And he might not even have known it. Obama might not even have been prepared for that question, but in the heat of in the moment, he thought, "Wait a second. I'm going to turn the tables. I'm going to give them an answer they're not expecting," knowing full well that it might end up putting pressure on the current administration to disclose. And I think that's great if that's what if
Well,
that all went
and
through
here's
his head. I
and
appreciate that.
here's the thing to consider. The knowledge of whether or not quote unquote aliens or non-human intelligence is real, that itself should not and probably is not classified information. It's probably more of the specifics of, the things that have been recovered, how we came upon that knowledge. That's the stuff that's going to be more guarded. But I think just simply, as a lot of people have said, is just the merely acknowledging the fact that NHI are real and they're here. That in and of itself should not, and I don't believe is in itself classified.
It is
So
not.
so for Obama to admit that, he has not compromised any of the NDAs that he would have been under, anything that he may have potentially been read into while he was president. So the fact that he's the first former president of the United States that has come forward and said, like you were saying, Dustin, just so matter of factly, they're real. That again, I'm my friends and all of my people that follow me on social media know that I am a very proud independent when it comes to politics. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. Uh, so the fact that Obama says this, I'm not going to look at it through the lens of one side of the aisle or the other. I'm looking at it just very succinctly, the way he said it, the things that he said it, and all three of you zoned in on the things that I noticed as well. I do think that there was no coincidence that he made the mention about it not being at Area 51 in an underground facility. And like you said, Dustin, it's not just, I mean, how many bases out there? We know Wright Pat is the long rumored facility that got the Roswell and the Kecksburg and the Kingman, Arizona crash retrieval stuff, among who knows what else. The legendary Blue Room that is supposed to exist at Wright Pat. And then again, yeah, Dugway. When popular mechanics came out with that article back in the 90s about Area 51 and how they had begun shifting everything to a other secret location somewhere in the West, the one that makes the most sense is Dugway, Utah. And I've got a lot of people that I know that live here in Utah that have either worked at Dugway or that have family that are out there that have said some things that certainly make that idea plausible, if not actual fact. But again, that aspect pure speculation. But I don't think it was. The one thing I know about President Obama is that he speaks everything deliberately, and that's one of the things I appreciate about him. He does not mince words, and I think that there was a reason why he said what he said, and I think it's significant what he said. We should be paying attention to it. Is it something that I'm going to get all excited about and say, "Oh, this is it. It's coming. The avalanche is about to happen"? No, I'm not that optimistic. I would love to be proven wrong on that, but I do think that I applaud President Obama for saying what he said, and I think it just goes to show that we are, like you said, Johnny, we're in that cycle where things are starting to whether they're ramping up or going down, working toward whatever this disclosure happens to be. But I don't think that we're ever truly going to get the full disclosure. I don't think we're going to get the full, enchilada, as they say. And but we are going to get bits and pieces of it. And I think, just as so many people said, in fact, I think it was Bill Maher that said this when he had Dan Farah on recently. In the wake of Age of Disclosure, he said, "We are way past the point of our UFOs real." He's like, if you're not even willing to accept that UFOs are real at this point, you are now on the fringe. You are one of the people that is clearly not paying attention. You are letting your own personal bias blind you to the fact that there is at least undeniable, incontrovertible data that there is truly something extraordinary happening around us. So I think because we're beyond that point now where we've crossed that Rubicon, at least as far as acknowledging whether or not they're quote unquote real. Now we're starting to get, I think, and gradually dipping our toes into the next phase, which is okay, what do we know about them? What is this data showing us? And now we're going to start seeing, I think, more conversations taking place on the nature of NHI. And again, folks, just as the nomenclature for UFOs has shifted to UAP, we are now shifting the nomenclature from aliens to being non-human intelligence. And I think there's a very good reason for that. That's a sensible transition to make. And I'm so happy to hear all of you referring to it as non-human intelligence, because I think for now, that's where that has to stay. And I think that's a very effective description to use when it comes to it. So to tie all this up, Dustin, you've got this event coming up here in Salt Lake City that I'm super excited to go and attend, and it's coming up on March 7th. Tell us a little bit about what that is and how that kind of ties into what we've just been talking about.
Absolutely. So, when I first joined MUFON, I love the work we do. We have amazing field investigators. We talk to so many great people, and I think they do an amazing job. The one I would say critique that I've always had about MUFON is I don't believe they're displaying the cases to the public as much as they should. And
Agreed.
so I originally created a presentation that I sort of been doing the past year and a half about cases that I thought were interesting, whether I investigated them or whether I saw them in the database. I'm doing a new presentation on March 7th, 2 p.m. at the Mill Creek Library, free to the public. And I really want to focus on these cases that involve non-human intelligence, people that come in contact with these non-human beings. I think it's important that we start to move further beyond the nuts and bolts craft. I think that the people are ready to hear about this more so than the nuts and bolts craft. As fascinating as those craft are, I think the people that have these experiences and have had contact hold a lot of the pieces of the puzzle that we're looking for when we're trying to figure out what this is. And I really want to display these cases because I think it's time. If you were to do this maybe 10, 15 years ago, even among a community that believes in UFOs, you'd probably not get a lot of people wanting to see something that's not about the nuts and bolts craft. But the times have changed. Even within MUFON, the sightings cases that we get, they've actually declined because we've had more competition with like Newfork and Enigma Labs and things. But the cases that the experience or resource team are getting, in which people are coming in contact with non-human intelligence, they're going through the roof. Like they're just
Yeah.
more and more and more people are coming out to tell of their experiences. And a lot of them are lifetime experiencers that have had multiple things happen to them and continue to happen to them. I find it fascinating. Perhaps it's self-indulgent for me to present this, but I think these are very fascinating cases that people need to listen to.
Excellent. I for one am super excited because truthfully, like you were saying, Dustin, 10 years ago, would I have actually honestly attended a presentation like you're doing? Probably not. Probably not. But now, in light of everything that has happened, in light of the fact that, I'm not just a Skinwalker Ranch insider, but I've had my own experiences now on certain things, wild horses could not drag me from attending this event. And anything that I can do personally or that we can do via the small but passionate footprint that the Soul of the Unexplained has to help promote what you're doing and to make sure that we get people that are looking at the skies and looking at the world with really good data-driven, scientific-based research, I think is what's really going to make the difference. And to keep talking about things like NHI, we are so past beyond the point now where are they real or are they not? And quite obviously, the data indicates that there really is something out there. There is a there. And so I'm super excited to attend your presentation and can't wait to see you again out there at that.
Awesome. Well, it'll be good to see you, Jimm. I always love seeing you.
Likewise, likewise. So going around the room, closing thoughts and remarks. And let's see. Who did I start? I'm always picking on one of you. Is it you, Jonny, or you, John? I don't remember which. I think it's usually Jonny.
I think you picked me first the last few times. So let's go to John.
I won't pick you first this time. We'll go with John, Mr. Nyberger, my favorite Denver Broncos fan and the greatest bass player ever to grace the stage at Phenomicon. John, give us your closing thoughts and remarks.
Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting there. I'm like trying to talk and stuff's popping up on my screen.
You missed the moment, John. It's gone.
I know, it's too late. It totally threw off the timing. But no, this has been great. Dustin, it was great to meet you. We've missed each other at Phenomicon, I think. But yeah, next time I get a chance, I definitely want to meet you in person. And I've enjoyed this discussion. It kind of makes me want to renew my membership in MUFON.
There you go.
I was a member. I had a membership in MUFON, the national or international, as well as Colorado MUFON, and I would go to their meetings. It was entertaining when I could make it. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it's a pleasure meeting you, John.
Yeah, definitely. And Dustin, we have to have tacos sometime.
Yeah.
You haven't lived until you've experienced tacos with Jimm and John and Roger and Jonny.
Yep. Absolutely.
Sounds good to me.
I know a place where we can go.
Yeah.
I know a few places near a lake.
Well, I'll tell you what, we get back to Vernal, I am definitely hitting up Antica Forma. I think
I was just thinking about that.
Every free moment I get, I'm going back to Antica Forma for that Italian food.
I wish you'd stop mentioning that. It makes my mouth water.
Same, right?
We're going to have to start charging them.
Yes,
we should get a discount for all the free advertising at this point.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Jonny, how about you? Closing thoughts and remarks from you.
Yeah, with how deep I've been, involved in this topic over, I don't even know the timeline anymore. I almost want to say 20 years, sadly, for how young I am. That's scary to say. I didn't know a whole lot about MUFON. I've learned a lot today, actually. I really appreciate it because, from an outsider looking in with literally just the name, it's easy to write off the organization as, oh, it's a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing people that get together and try to summon aliens. But it's really not. It's a pretty analytical organization that's trying to investigate, which, the whole situation at large, the topic really needs people to look at it as a data. It is a research-based thing that we need to look at for this. And, I'm just happy to have learned a little bit more about it. I might have to look into joining because, I'm a member of some things, but I'm not very active in them. But I like the data, so I might have to check it out now.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Right on. And Dustin, closing thoughts and remarks from you.
This has been a pleasure, guys. I always love chatting about this. And next time, are you guys going to Phenomicon next year, all you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay, sweet.
We have to be there.
Still to be determined, but quite likely.
Cool. Because I just got word the other day that they want me to present, so I'm going to be back there again.
Ooh,
so yeah, that'll be awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll definitely meet you in person.
Speaker badge this year, hopefully, right?
What's that?
Yeah.
You get a speaker badge this year.
Yeah, I'll get a speaker badge, and it'll be awesome. Last year was amazing. It's such an honor.
Maybe this year they won't keep confusing me for you.
Yeah, we keep getting confused. I keep making up stories about your life, so I pretend I'm you, John. I make up all these wild things, and then hopefully it doesn't come back to you, but I don't think so.
I don't know. If you signed any books, it's kind of funny.
I'll sign them as you, yeah. Yeah, that is weird. Yeah, we do get confused.
People have asked me to sign books, but I get asked about MUFON all the time when I'm out there.
Well, now you have some info on it. You could fill them in.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to show up anymore. You can do everything I need to do there. It was funny.
That's why I wore my glasses today.
It was funny. Last year at Phenomicon, your booth came up to me. They're like, "Hey, we need to give you something from the last Phenomicon." I was like, "Really?" And I went up there, and there was a cartoonist there that drew a picture of me, but gave it to you instead.
Yes, they
did.
We've
been hanging on to this for a year.
I was talking to my mom about that, and I was like, I'm glad we gave that to him. It's the funniest thing because the guy, he put this time into it. It's really nice, but it's like, gave it to the wrong dude. Come on. And
yeah, it's all good. Yeah, it gave me a chance to talk to your dad a little bit, who I found out plays video games, which is cool. And
yep, he's still mostly playing like Call of Duty Black Ops 2. For anyone that plays video games, That one is a little old now, but that's his go-to game these days.
And that's what he told me. He goes, I'm a Call of Duty man. So I was like, oh, right on. Yeah. So yeah, I'll see you guys at Phenomicon. And my last quote is just listen. If someone's willing to tell their story, just please listen to them. You don't have to believe them. You don't have to, just listen to anyone that's willing to talk about their experiences. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how many of your friends, family, and coworkers have had experiences that you never knew they did.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know if I ever mentioned this before, but my father uh finally confided in me just a couple of months before he died that he saw a UFO up close and personal back in the 1960s. And all his life he kept that a secret and didn't tell anybody until he knew that it was right around the time that I was uh getting in well with the guys at Skinwalker Ranch, which my dad absolutely adored the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch TV series. And it was kind of cool because a couple of months before he passed away, my dad was actually planning on going to Phenomicon with me that year. This would have been the second year of Phenomicon than when I met you. And my dad had just had a pacemaker put in, so he had surgery, wasn't well enough to travel. But it was really cool because I got Travis Taylor and Caleb Bench to say a quick greeting from my dad, wish him, hope he gets well. And I sent that to him, and my sister told me that my dad's face just lit up and he was just grinning from ear to ear and really made his day. So my I think about it now, with today actually being my dad's birthday. He passed away about 3 years ago. And just where he would be, because he was really getting into the disclosure thing and really heavily into Skinwalker Ranch and the strange phenomena. And if he could only see now, uh, just how far I've been able to go with this, with the podcast, with me and Roger, and also my now personal friendships with people like Travis Taylor and obviously Caleb Bench and Jay Stratton, and just everybody that I've now come in contact with. I wish I would have had the chance to introduce my dad to some of these people, because he would have loved that. And but to your point, yeah, you just never know who in your family or who in your circle of friends and people that has had some of these amazing experiences. And the best way is to not be afraid to talk about them. Bring up the conversation. This last Thanksgiving, I brought up the conversation of Age of Disclosure and how awesome it was. And I know that I was personally responsible for making at least 25 people watch and rent or buy Age of Disclosure on Amazon. So I've been a huge cheerleader for it. And I was surprised to find out how many people have since come forward, and they won't talk to them about it when I post something publicly on Facebook, but they'll contact me on Facebook Messenger and say, I'm not ready to talk about this in public, but let me tell you what I saw or what I experienced one time. And it's exactly that. It's people that are no longer having that fear of speaking up and telling someone. As long as they know that they're not going to be ridiculed and made fun of, that makes all the difference. Because for some people that are not as invested as we are, that don't follow this topic on a regular basis, to them, there is still a great deal of stigma attached to it. And there's a little bit of shame in admitting that I think I saw something once, or I did see something once. And I'm happy to see that that is all starting to change. That paradigm is finally starting to shift. And that's a very good thing. I think only positive things are going to come out of it. And I think I'm really getting excited about this presentation you're giving on the 7th. And uh, Dustin, thank you so much for taking your time on a Sunday to join with us and talk to us about MUFON, all the amazing things that you and Ben and your team here in Utah have been doing. Can't wait to see you on the 7th. And at Phenomicon, Hitchhiker's coming back to Phenomicon.
Nice.
We're playing again. We're going to close out the conference on Saturday night at Phenomicon 2026. So that'll be good to experience again. Yeah, so folks, just thank you so much for tuning in today. And remember, you can find out more about MUFON by going to www.mufon.com or .org, is it?
.com. Yep.
.com, MUFON.com. and it's definitely worth checking into, folks. So if you like what you saw in here, hit that like button, because we like to get likes. We like those thumbs up, and let us know your thoughts, folks. Have you guys ever experienced had any strange sightings inside or outside of Utah? What are some of the things that you're excited about, and what do you think about President Obama's rather surprising admission that happened just about a day or so ago? We'd love to hear in the comments. Let us know. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. We'd love to pick up some more subscribers. Now that we're all back and ready to tackle 2026, we're going to have much more frequent content moving forward. Knock on wood, hopefully, if our schedules can ever align and keep all that going. Massive tip of the hat again to you, Dustin, and to you, Jonny, and to you, John, as well. A big shout out to our friend Roger, who's still feeling under the weather. Roger, we're still thinking of you. We're still praying for you. And we can't wait to get you back in the saddle with us here on the Soul the Unexplained. Until such time, folks, look after one another, take care of one another, and just don't ever give up hope, folks, because life does get better, and I'm confident of that. Thanks again, folks, and we will see you next time right here on the Soul the Unexplained. See ya.